Hey YouTube, it's me Adrian, back again with another video. But I know it's been a long time. And the last time I made a video, I was about 16 weeks pregnant. It was a crazy time. So yes, if you've noticed, I cut off all my dreads. I was tired, I did not want to do my hair, so I had them cut off. But I saved them so I can reattach them later on. So at 16 weeks, you guys, that was my last video. I went in for my ultrasound again at 17 weeks. So from 16 weeks on, I had an ultrasound every week. And I'll explain why. So at that point, my life went really crazy. Um, the boys, they just, not so much the boys, because the boys were good. My pregnancy was just crazy. I was preterm labor. I had contractions. I was dilated. So I had all these things going on. So at right before, was it right before, no, 16 weeks, I actually stopped working. So I went on short-term disability just because I was still early in pregnancy. I didn't want to take my maternity leave because then I would have to come back again 12 weeks later. So I took maternity leave and then I took long-term disability. So officially I have been out at this, well, by September I was been out about 7 months. I've been out of work, paid, but out of work. So at 17 weeks, I had an ultrasound. Um, Everything looked fine. They noticed that my cervix had come. So if you know your cervix is long, so say this is your cervix, mine's completely shortened by a lot. So I was threatened preterm labor and contractions. I had contractions anyway, and my doctor didn't like the fact that my contractions were so frequent, and they had put me on a monitor. They just took me out of work. So from then on, every week I was threatened with preterm labor pretty much. So that's pretty much why I didn't do any videos for a long time. Every week I went into the hospital. If it wasn't bleeding, it was the contractions. I was in so much pain sometimes where I thought I lost them. I stopped feeling movement. But they've been fine. They were fine the whole time. My body just was, again, wanting to reject my pregnancy. For whatever reason, my body just doesn't want it. So I got to about 22 weeks. I went to the hospital for about almost 4 or 5 days. Each time was like literally like 3 or 4 days. Same thing, contractions, preterm labor, all the most. I end up being about 3 centimeters dilated at 22 weeks. So they said it can be pretty normal for a twin pregnancy or even a multiple pregnancy. So I was put on complete, before I was on bed rest, but this was complete bed rest. Me being on complete bed rest, that was something else. So she's either said I can go complete bed rest or I can be in a wheelchair. I chose the wheelchair and some bed rest. So at about 22 weeks, I literally went from figuring out whether they're gonna put a pessary in place or do a cerclage. So some of you all know what a cerclage is, where they stitch your cervix closed so that you don't have preterm labor. Or the other option is a pessary. What a pessary does can either hold your cervix in place or it can hold your uterus in place. So this is for more of like the older patients, like 60, 70, with their cervix and their uterus is bulging out. I do know a lot about this stuff because I work in GYN and I work in fertility. I work in all that stuff. So that's for their cervix and their uterus, so it holds everything up inside. They put that in place for me to hold my babies inside. So if you don't know what a pessary is, it's literally, it looks like a big donut. They have different models, different sizes. So it looks like a big donut and it goes inside. They fold it and it goes inside and it blows back up, like, and it's plastic and it's thick plastic. Mine's looked more like a saucer. Mine was about this thick, had little holes, divots, and all of it. It's about that big. Had like a little thing that sticks up. It kind of looks like a penis, but it's not. So that part is going the opposite direction, like it was coming out, and the flat part goes in to hold the cervix up. Now, I was put on that. I was put on progesterone. I was on headache medication. I was on two different kinds. I was on a lot of medication, a lot. Then I had low iron, so I was going in for iron infusions because the iron pills weren't working. So I was going in for iron infusions once a week. I think once a week. So I got it to about 25 weeks. I went back into the hospital. Well, I was in the hospital probably every week, but this was like a major haul. So I went to the hospital. I was in there for about 4 or 5 days. So I had preeclampsia, threatened preterm labor, and my cervix was still dilating. So they did a 24-hour urine just to make sure that, everything was fine, and that was. Then they would put me on magnesium to see if I can continue my pregnancy. Then I was giving steroid shots for the babies for their lungs just in case they were born early. So at 26 weeks was my baby shower. The day before my baby shower, they let me out of the hospital, literally. So I get out of the hospital, go to my baby shower, which was beautiful. Thanks to my best friend, it was beautiful. And then I went back into the hospital, I think a week later. Same issue. They hooked me up to the monitors, and they were like, wow, you're in full-blown contractions. So that was a scary moment. So I was about 27 weeks, and I was just like, okay. They pretty much told me kind of get ready, that I'll probably end up either giving birth or I'll end up staying in the hospital. That didn't happen. I stayed there for another 4 or 5 days. They let me go home again. So I went home with magnesium pills, and all the other medication that I was on. I was on progesterone suppositories, again, to continue my pregnancy. I live like 45 minutes away from my hospital, which is my job. And I would go into the hospital that's closest to me, and they do not do any high-risk pregnancy. So they had to call an ambulance, drive me into the hospital every single time, which was a headache and crazy. So that was 26 weeks. I got to 30, I was like 33 weeks. Again, all between those times, I was in and out of the hospital. Nothing's changed. I saw the babies every week. The babies were doing fine. They did a stress test. Those were fine. But contractions were killing me. So I got 33 weeks. I discussed with my doctor what they were going to do. I went to the hospital, and a lot of the doctors that I, see, all of them I work with, they took out my pessary and threw it away, and just to kind of check my cervix, and it was still dilating. Crazy. Still dilating, and they couldn't find another pessary to put in place. So they literally sent me home with it. No pessary in place. I went back in the next day to go put my pessary in place with my doctor. So my doctor was just like, Adrian, I just want to be honest. We don't think that you're going to go, to full term, which, what twin pregnancy does, but they thought that I was going to go within any day. I got to 36 weeks. We scheduled my induction for 37 weeks, which was perfect because I was dying. I had edema. Edema, if most people don't know, I had swelling, but I had edema so bad that when you touched it, my skin, you pressed it, it stayed like that for days. It would not even pop back out. So They said they couldn't put me on water pills now, so they had to wait till I gave birth to put me on water pills. So I made it to induction day. That was like the most, but it was I've had a hard pregnancy. Made it to induction day. And that's like a story all in itself. So I'm going to do a part 2 for you guys. So I'm going to upload this and do my induction day.